Hi there, I'm Ben and welcome to my Nubla 2 full platinum walkthrough. Nubla 2 is the sequel to Nubla, or World of Nubla if you like, one of the easiest and quickest platinums on the PS4. Disappointingly, this game is not as quick, but in exchange we do get a bit more of an actual game here. The platinum will take you about 2.5 to 3 hours. There's nothing difficult about the game, the puzzles are pretty simple. The biggest problem is fighting the glitches and boredom. The first 3 chapters aren't too bad, but chapter 3 is where all the problems seem to arise. I ran into 2 glitches, the first of which is if you have your inventory open and go through a door, you'll potentially get stuck on the other side, unable to move. The second has to do with passing items to an NPC. During the story, you'll have to find certain items and give them to certain characters by pressing circle. If you're in the middle of a conversation and the NPC is still talking and you give them an item, the last sentence they said will stay on the screen and you won't be able to proceed. To ensure this doesn't happen, when you give an item to an NPC, make sure they aren't talking and stand slightly away from them so that there is no speech bubble above their head. If either of these glitches happen, quit the game and boot it back up again and you should be fine. There is a third glitch that I didn't personally run into, and that's during chapter 3 as well. When you pick up the paint behind the Teddy King, I promise this will all make sense when you do it, it may change colour from purple to green as you leave the building, and apparently this stops you being able to open the next door. I don't know if there's actually a fix for this one, hopefully it will get patched soon. Like I said, I didn't run into it myself and I've done 3 full playthroughs. So I would advise doing exactly as I do in this video at that part. To try and avoid the game glitching in general, just take your time and don't try and rush through the game or jump the gun on an objective. This is when the problems seem to happen. There are 5 missable trophies in the game: Overboard, the Finite Cycle, Compulsive Reader, Flux Capacitor and the Colour Flows Again. The rest are all story related. I've put timestamps and more information about the missable trophies and when they are in the description below. Overboard is in chapter 1, the Finite Cycle is in chapter 2 and the other 3 are in chapter 3. The last 2, Flux Capacitor and the Colour Flows Again, can be missed because you can finish the game early and there is no chapter select. During chapter 3, when you make your escape from the city on the boat and meet back up with Nubla, the elephant, don't continue right after talking to him. This will start chapter 4 and finish the game. Go back to the city instead and continue on with the rest of chapter 3. I'm not going to do a full commentary during this video, I'm just going to jump in when it's necessary. Unfortunately, that does mean most of the video is going to be silent. I don't know whether it's a sound glitch or whether it's supposed to be like that, but most of the game has no music or sound effects. Who knows why? Like I mentioned before, there are timestamps in the description if you wish to skip to a certain trophy or puzzle. Also, I've edited out cutscenes and anything that isn't gameplay to try and shorten the runtime of this video. Okay, let's begin. So that's 1 gold trophy for free. You'll get one at the beginning of each chapter. The first chapter, chapter 0, serves as an intro to the ism's special powers, which is strange because you'll hardly use them again after this chapter. To use their power, press square. Choose the yellow-haired one first. He makes things appear and disappear. Unfortunately, you can't change the characters on the fly, so you'll have to come back to this room every time. If you're wondering why you're having to move using the right stick, it's because you'll be controlling 2 characters later on, one for each half of the controller. Think of the D-pad as triangle, circle, X and square for the main character. There are no missable trophies during this chapter, so any you see pop are story related. When it comes to dying in this game, it will take you back to the last scene change, usually a door, so anything you did before dying will need to be done again. During this first part, speak to all the NPCs and collect the first plant by making the balcony disappear, so the plant drops down. It won't appear until you've spoken to the artist for the second time. After that, return to the room with all the isms and change to the green-haired one. He'll be able to teleport through the door at the far right, use the lever to open the door. Then, change to the rainbow-haired guy, he can shrink and enter the box at the far end of the market. After that, change to the blue-haired one and Now that you have all 3 plants, return to the room where the stairs are and put all of the plants into the machine using circle. After that you'll have to meet Nubla, who is way off to the right past the market. You'll have to decide which ism to use here. He'll be the one that sticks with you for the rest of the game, not that it makes much difference. It just means that a couple of puzzles play out slightly differently. It's hardly noticeable at all. There is a storm outside now, so when the black clouds appear, take shelter by ducking behind the crates. When it passes, move up to the next lot of crates and continue doing this until you reach Nubla and the end of the chapter. Okay, so this is the start of chapter 1, so time for another gold trophy. This is also where you'll get your first Missable trophy, Overboard. All you have to do is walk off the end of the first dock. Easy stuff. The rest of this chapter is pretty linear, no back and forth. You'll have to complete some pretty simple puzzles which involve sending your ism ahead first usually. They are definitely the best character to use, they are quicker, and you're able to double jump by pressing R2 twice. This chapter does include both puzzles that may differ slightly depending on which ism you chose. The first of which is on the first island after you paint over the moon. This is the first part where the game will differ slightly depending on which ism you chose. It's pretty self-explanatory, just jump on the block once the main character paints it and use your power. For me it's levitation, but for the others it will involve revealing a tunnel or teleporting to the other side. Continue on until you get to the boat at the end of the third island. For this part, don't worry about getting both characters to safety, just use the ism's double jump to ensure he makes it, and the checkpoint will reload with both characters at the other side. Okay, so this is the first proper puzzle. Send one of the characters to the top switch. This one changes which ring is being controlled, inner, outer or middle. The other two switches move the highlighted ring left or right. Think of the rings as kind of a clock but with only 8 hours. The circle at the top represents 0 or the 8th hour, then going round clockwise the squares represent the other 7. The outer ring wants to be pointing at 7, the middle one at 1 and the inner ring at 5. This will open up the area above you, allowing you to move on. This is the first part where you'll have to pass an item to another character. To do this, stand to one side of them and press circle or right on the D-pad depending on which character you're using. It doesn't seem to work if you're standing too close. Right, so this spider's going to try and catch you. Hide in the bushes by crouching to avoid being caught. This is the second puzzle that will differ slightly depending on which ism you chose. All of the isms have to drag the first statue to the white plate on the bridge, but the others won't need to bother with the second statue. you'll be able to use their power to reveal the rest of the entrance or shrink down to pass through it. Okay, so to fix the automaton we need to do a bit of time travelling. Firstly, go back in time, the blue arrow, and pick up the paint and check out the gear puzzle solution behind the automaton's head. After that, return to the present day and then jump forward in time, the red arrow. Here you'll need to pick up the gears that you'll need. The game is kind of weird about items and their usage. If you have something in your inventory but don't have it equipped, you can't use it. For example, you can't pick up paint if the paintbrush isn't equipped. So pick 3 gears up in the same order I do and you won't have to mess around with your inventory. The first one is the up arrow, the next one is the plus sign, and finally the one that looks like the number 11. Head back to present day and put them all in place to awaken the automaton. After talking to it, use the paint to colour the moon back in, and that'll be the end of chapter 1. Okay, so we're in chapter 2 now, and it's time for a bit more time travelling. You'll need to follow the glowing ball through time, trying to catch it and quickly returning to present day before the storm kills you. If it does, you'll have to start the sequence again. It goes forward, back, returning to present day in between each jump. You can tell what time you're in by the colour of the background: red for forward, orange for present day and blue for back. So you should have orange to start, then red, orange, blue, orange, red, orange, blue, and finally orange. At that point you should find Nubla again. Time for another puzzle. This is another easy one. You need to get the train from the top left to the bottom right by dropping the bridges and punching it to turn it around. The traffic light will start the train, the blue button will drop the bridges, and the red button controls the boxing gloves. The response is slow when pressing a button, so press it a second or so before you actually need it to do something. This is another super easy puzzle. Pick up the 3 shards in front of you. One of them is over the other side of the gap. You'll need to place each shard in its corresponding pillar that are off to the right hand side. Ignore the first pillar. The shard for this one is behind the cage off to the far right hand side. You can get that one in a moment. To use a shard, make sure you actually have it equipped. It won't work otherwise. Once you've placed all 3 shards, go to the cage and pick up the 4th one and put it in the first pillar to open the cage up and free the prisoner. Right, so this is where you'll get the second missable trophy, the Finite Cycle. All you have to do is just keep walking right. I have edited it out of this video, but you'll need to walk for about 2 minutes before the trophy will unlock. After that, go and speak to the guy in the suit to initiate a riddle puzzle. puzzle is always the same, so making the same choices as me will work. Choose chair first, door second, and then choose the sentence with chair and book in it to complete the riddle. This next part is a bit of simple platforming. You need to get both characters to the top of the tower and pull the switch. Send the ism up first by double jumping and hit all of the switches on the way up. This will activate the platforms and allow the main character to ascend the tower. When at the top, pick up the paint and hit the switch to submerge the tower in water. At that point, paint yourself a key and go and open the door. That will be the end of chapter 2. So now we're in chapter 3, this is the main part of the game. The remaining runtime of this video is all chapter 3 apart from the last 5 minutes or so. The way the game plays is a bit different now too. Instead of just progressing forward in a straight line, there's lots of back and forth between areas. There are 3 missable trophies during this chapter. Compulsive Reader for reading all 3 books in the library. This happens fairly early on and the library can be revisited during the chapter. The other 2, Flux Capacitor and the Colour Flows Again, are story related, but that part of the story can be skipped. Once you leave the city and meet up with Nubla, you can continue right and the game will end. What you need to do is speak to Nubla and then return to the city to continue the story. For this first part, speak to all of the NPCs in the area to move the story forward. After speaking to the lady with the suitcase, pick up the crystal behind her and give it to her. The story will continue on. The ism will enter the hotel and you'll have to paint over the door. After that, go and use the time flower again. Once you're all alone, continue left, speaking to the civilians as you go. Eventually you get to the factory, speak to the guys there and ask to go inside the factory. They will leave shortly after that, leaving you free to pick up the valve handle. Once you have it, speak to Wiz again, the hopscotch girl, and jump into the puzzle of paint. Okay, this is the underground market. Continue left until you get to the sewer tunnel entrance, climb the ladder and use the handle to open it. You can speak to the guy in the blue jacket along the way, he'll want to play a game with you. You won't earn anything for winning, it's just practice for later on. Now you're inside the tunnel, make your way up until you get to the 3 consoles. These control the platforms above. Interacting with the console will fill the white bar on the side up by 1. It'll go up to 3, then it'll reset. The sequence you need is 1, 3, 2. So leave the first one, press the second one twice and the last one once. After that, leave the sewer and onto the library for another missable trophy. Now we're inside the library, it's time to get the third Missable trophy, Compulsive Reader, for reading all of the books, of which there are only 3. Speak to Ben, then read the book behind him. After that, head up the ladder and read the 2 up there. The first book upstairs shows you the paint mixture you'll need to be making shortly, 2 blue, 1 red, 1 green. And the second book shows you the layout of the hotel. Before going back down the ladder, be sure to grab the leaves just to the left of it. After that, leave the library and head left into the paint factory. Once in the paint factory, head to the top and put the leaves in the machine. Now it's time to mix the right colour. Pull the blue lever twice, the green one once and the red one once. Then go down and press the green button on the console. You won't receive anything, instead the paint is dripping in the room below. Go down and see the Teddy King. He won't let you past until you get him another teddy. Luckily the hopscotch girl has one, so leave the factory using the front door. You can unlock it by using the key that Ben gave you. Once outside, jump in the truck and destroy the gate and robot in front of you, unlocking another trophy. Remember, this robot will be picking it up in a minute. Keep heading right until you reach Wiz. Of course, Wiz won't just give you the teddy, you'll have to play her for it. This is the game you could have practiced in the underground market. The aim of the game is to block your opponent's pieces so they can't move. To do this, you'll have to try and get both of her pieces on the same side. This is pretty simple stuff, but don't worry if you mess up, you can have as many goes as you need. Once you've won, pick up the teddy soldier and take it to the king. Make sure to pick up the robot that you destroyed with a truck earlier on the way back. So this is the part that seems to glitch for some people. When they pick up the paint it's purple, but when they leave the factory it turns green, meaning they can't use it on the hotel door. As I'm recording this, a patch has been released, so it may be fixed now. Just in case, follow what I do in the video. It didn't happen to me in any of my 3 playthroughs. Equip the teddy and give it to the king, then equip your paintbrush and pick up the paint. Leave the factory and head all the way across town to the hotel. Paint the door back on and enter it. Now we're reunited with our ism again, it's time to explore the hotel. Head left, answer the phone and pick up the parcel. After that use the lift and go to room 103 on the first floor, speak to the ism there and then head back to the lift and up to room 204 to speak to Monet. After that head back to room 103 and speak to the ism again. They'll give you a list of ingredients you'll need to find. So the three things you need to find are resin, dye and honey. You can get the resin from the watchmaker in room 102. While you're with him, give him the package that you got from reception downstairs. The dye is found on the right hand side of room 104 and the honey is in the kitchen downstairs. To gain access to the kitchen, go to room 101 and give the timetable to the lady in there, then head down in the lift. Once you get downstairs, you'll find out that there are robots down there now. Use the alarm in the lift to distract them and clear the way. Enter the kitchen using the door on the right and pick up the honey. You can also speak to Wiz while you're there. Once you have everything, head back up to room 103 and give everything to the ISM. Now that you've given the 3 items to the ISM, you'll be told that you need to fetch something else, a time flower. You can get one of these from the lady in room 202, which is upstairs. When given dialogue options, ask her about the medallion and she'll give you the flower. Once you have it, head back to room 103 and give it to the ISM. Now that you've finally made the pigment, head to room 101 and use it on the screen with the birds on it. After that, head to room 204 and speak to Monet again. He'll give you some paint and tell you the solution to the clock puzzle that you'll be doing next. It's 3312. Head down to room 102 and complete that puzzle. Time for another puzzle and trophy. Speak to the clockmaster and he'll let you use his clocks. Change the time on them to 3, 3 and 12. Doing this will reveal the door downstairs in the kitchen. Go back downstairs and go through it. You'll meet Wiz again. Use the paint on the door on the right and go through it to get back outside. Once you're outside, head all the way to the left back to the library to speak to Ben again. He'll ask you to find a mirror. You can purchase a mirror from one of the vendors at the underground market, which is through the door marked "This is not a door." You can find that halfway between the library and the hotel. Now that you're in the underground market, look for the lady with all the mirrors. Of course, she's not going to just give you one, she wants something in return. A starfish? Anyway, you can find one of those in the basket in room 104 of the hotel, where the lady was doing the sewing. Once you have it, bring it back and exchange it for a mirror. Robots are going to start appearing around the city now. You can easily avoid them by just crawling underneath them. If they do kill you, you'll go back to the last time the scene changed, usually when you've entered or exited a door. So anything you did prior to dying will need doing again. Now that you have the starfish, swap it for a mirror with the lady. The next thing you need to do is head back into the hotel to room 202, where the lady who gave you the time flower was. When you get to room 202, replace the broken mirror, jump through it, and then head up the ladder. Now that we're in the observatory, we need to use the big onion coconut thing to move the city walls. You do this by playing a simple tune with it, of course. The tune can be found in the book to the right. Interact with the coconut onion and press pink, orange, orange, blue and green. This will remove a wall to the right of the hotel. Go back downstairs and leave the hotel to take a look. Once you're outside, keep running right until you get to the alley that takes you to the train station. It's just after the cafe. Go through and continue going right, speaking to NPCs as you go. Once at the train station, speak to the artist here and you'll be asked to find a toy train. You can find one of these at the pawn shop. The pawn shop is the little building to the left of the cafe where the alleyway to the train station was to the right. Once in the shop, wait for everybody else to leave. When it's just you and the shop owner, you'll ask for the memory of a train, but he'll want a memory in exchange. Offer him the sleeper's memory. It's the only one he'll accept. Once you have the train, pick up the broken glass, not that you'll ever use it, and head back to the train station. Back at the train station, give the toy train back to the artist. To do this, you may need to stand on his right hand side. I had to. He'll draw a train and you'll be whisked off to the outskirts of the city. When you arrive at the outskirts, start off by turning the mirror around. After that, keep heading right, speaking to civilians as you go. The only one you really need to take note of is the guy on top of the podium with the crow on his head. He gives you the next tune you need for the coconut onion so you can open up more of the city. It's red, red, green, blue, violet, violet. You may have noticed that the coconut onion didn't have a violet key. We'll get that a little later on. For now though, keep heading right, speaking to people until you get to the robot. You should get the Deja Vu trophy for seeing the Indians again while doing this. After you do reach the robot, turn around and head back to the train station and go through the mirror. It'll take you back to the hotel. Now we're back at the hotel, make your way out of the front door. You'll have to speak to a few more civilians on the way. Once outside, head right back to the pawn shop. Back in the shop, speak to the owner again. This is where we'll get the violet key for the coconut onion. He'll want another memory off you. Offer him the Lady of the Forest. Once you have the violet key, head back to the hotel and up to the observatory via room 202. Back at the observatory, add the violet key to the coconut onion and interact with it to play another tune. Red, red, green, blue, violet, violet. This will lower the remaining walls in the city. Once that's done, head back outside the hotel and keep going right until you meet the three guys in suits. Now that you've been surrounded, there's only one way to escape: go up. This starts sort of a chase once you get onto the rooftop. Keep heading left and jump the gaps. I found it easiest to do it one character at a time. Once at the other end, go down the ladder and into the pawn shop. He'll let you hide in his back room. The back room of the pawn shop is a maze of doors. Take the same route as I do to reach the entrance of Voltaire's. Before we enter, however, we might as well get that bag of starfish. We'll need it later on. Again, follow the route I take, grab them, and return back to Voltaire's and enter it. Inside Voltaire's, speak to everyone you come across. The artist will mention he wants some starfish, but don't give them to him yet. Keep heading left and you'll get the After Hours trophy, speak to a few more people and then leave via the left hand door. Outside Voltaire's, go up the first ladder you get to and back onto the rooftops. Keep heading left like you did previously, but this time when you get to the giant skinny man, give him the starfish, then follow him. You'll meet the artist again and he'll open up his suitcase, revealing a ladder. Go up it. Inside the control room, speak to the guy in the chair. He'll ask you for a broken robot. You should have one if you remember to pick the one up you destroyed with a truck earlier on. Give it to him and he'll work on it. When he's done, press the button and head down the ladder and back towards the hotel. Make sure to duck under any robots you see along the way. Once inside the hotel, make your way back to the mirror that's through the secret door in the kitchen. Go through the mirror and back to the outskirts. Once you get to the outskirts, just keep heading right until you get to the docks. You'll be given a boat at this point. Use it to escape the city. Right, so this is the point where you can miss the final two trophies, Flux Capacitor and the colour flows again. If you head right after speaking to Nubla, the game will end. What you need to do is speak to Nubla, then go back to the city using the boat and continue on with Chapter 3. Now that you're back in the city outskirts, head all the way back to the mirror and into the hotel. Back at the hotel, head to the entrance, speak to Ben there, he'll offer to enter the final code, give it to him. Then head back to the mirror to start another cycle and unlock the Flux Capacitor trophy. Once the cycle has ended, exit the hotel and head left to the underground market via the chalk "This is not a door" door. Inside the underground market, go left and speak to the two guys there. After that, exit the way you came and head all the way to the left to the paint factory. At the paint factory, speak to the man there and he'll ask you to plant a time flower. Leave the paint factory and just keep going right, past the hotel, past the pawn shop, and go into the alley that leads to the train station. Keep heading right and you'll meet Ben and Wiz. Speak to them, then plant the flower in the Utopia part behind them. You'll speak to Ben and Wiz again and they'll tell you to paint a time flower, and that you can use the wet paint from Wiz's newly painted hopscotch. It's all the way back to the left, just before the paint factory. Go and get it, then return here and paint the flower above the door. Once you've painted the time flower, use it and you'll travel forward in time. Speak to Natalia when you get there, she'll give you a plant. Once you have it, go all the way back to the paint factory. They're really dragging this out now. At the paint factory, go to the left and up to the top of the paint mixing machine. Once there, put the plants into the machine and hit all 3 switches twice to drop all of the colour down. Start the machine with the green button, but of course, it won't work. You'll need to go and release the pressure by interacting with all of the valves across the city. You've probably noticed them along your travels and wondered what they do. There are 5 in the city and 2 in the outskirts. Follow the path I take to make sure you get all of them. There are a lot of robots out there now, so be ready to duck underneath them. If you die before a scene change, you will have to activate any valves again that were between the scene change and the death. Once you've activated all of them, you'll be teleported back to the paint factory. Back at the factory, go through the same process as before and dump all of the colour into the mixer and press the green button. Okay, this is getting ridiculous now. Leave the paint factory and enter the sewer using the hatch just outside of the door. Climb all the way down to the bottom and use the switch there, then climb halfway back up and interact with all 3 switches twice. After that, climb back down and exit via the underground market. There will be an obstacle in your way and it will be different depending on which ism you're using. Simply use their power to overcome it. This is the end of the game now. All that's left to do is chapter 4, which will take you about 2 or 3 minutes. It just consists of 3 very simple rotating puzzles. The solutions are literally in the background. Complete those and you'll be awarded a nice shiny platinum for your collection. Thank you very much for watching, even more so if you made it all the way to the end. Please feel free to like and subscribe, it will help me out. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.